Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone. This is Lydia. And today I've got one of my returning guests. I'm sitting here with Gib Broadhead. Hi, Gib.
Hi, Lydia.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. It's a little cool here, but I'm loving it. Sunshine's out and it's cool too.
Yeah.
What's it like where you're at?
A little cold and cloudy, but it's a nice day.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, everybody, for any of you who have listened to any of my previous episodes, I asked Gib to come on with me because we have so much fun talking about serious topics that matter. And we want to continue to bring these serious topics that matter out to those who are needing the support. And I was on a conversation with a longtime friend that I knew over 30 years ago. And we were talking about someone who had passed on. And I just felt really guided that it was time for this discussion of mediumship. So I know a lot of y'all are thinking, mediumship, what is that? Or an opinion that you've already formed about it. What's that called, Gib? A preconceived idea. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah. Preconceived notion.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. Like people have like a preconceived notion about the concept of mediumship. And the reason that Gib is here to talk with me about mediumship is because about 9 years ago, he discovered that he had the gifts of mediumship. And I've actually had an experience with Gib being a medium. So we're going to talk about that today so we can take the veil off of the mystery behind mediumship and help everyone understand the healing that can happen when you actually have an experience talking to somebody who has the ability to communicate with your loved ones who have transitioned over. But before we get talking about that, I'd like for Gib to give us a little bit of background about how he uncovered that he had the gifts of mediumship. So you want to share that with us, Gib?
Sure. About 9 years ago, I had an experience where one of my friends had a brain aneurysm. He was on the East Coast working, and they took him to the hospital in a brain dead coma. And I got a call from his girlfriend that day, who's a close friend of mine, telling me what had happened. And I felt helpless, of course, who wouldn't? But I had this notion that I wanted to talk to him. And so I just laid down in my bed and I closed my eyes and I just focused on connecting with him. And I had a conversation with him and I felt like I was talking to him. And he told me, I felt when I connected with him, I could tell he was scared. He didn't know where he was. And so I told him, you had a brain aneurysm and you're in a hospital in a brain dead coma, and tomorrow they're gonna pull the plug on you. And I could tell he was comforted by those words. And all of this was I thought was just a vivid imagination, but it felt so real. And when it was over, it had a real impact on me, and I felt like I really did talk to him. And so it had such an impact that I ended up going to take a class on mediumship with Russell Forsyth here in Austin. He's been a big teacher and mentor of mine. And when I took the class, I had some fairly significant things happen. I gave a reading to a deaf man in front of the group, and his dad came forward, and he didn't want to talk to his dad, but his dad sure wanted to talk to him. And the healing that came out of that moment was profound. I mean, everybody in the room was crying or to tears. And I was sitting there going, what just happened?
It surprised you as much as
it surprised me. It did. It surprised me. And I think, in practicing mediumship, even now, knowing that I'm connected to someone and getting enough evidence to let the person I'm reading for know that I'm connected with their loved one is really what got me into spirituality. Because how am I supposed to know some guy's dad loved driving an old Oldsmobile? Like, how are you supposed to know that when some stranger comes in to get a reading from you? Like, there's no way I'm going to know that.
That you're going to be able to make that stuff up.
Right. Exactly. And so
I can't make this stuff up.
With a background in IT, a career in IT, and very, like process driven and facts driven. And so this 9-year, in the past me was like, what the hell, and so really it's what created the evidence, provided my faith, and my faith is what led me 9 years later to be where I am now.
A lot of people have a big experience that helps kind of break them open to walk down their lifelong, purposeful spiritual path. And would you say this one was one of yours that really kind of got you in the direction of spirituality?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Totally. Yeah.
That's
this is really the foundation of my work. It really set the basis. And it's one thing to work on your intuitive side, using angel cards or whatever, asking your own intuition questions. It's quite another when you're talking to a spirit. It really kind of pushes home the magic, I think.
Yeah. And you're saying spirit, but I want to just kind of personalize it for people. I mean, you generalize it in the term of spirit because that's what, like as the medium, it is for you. But really, most of the time, it's somebody's actual loved one. It's not just spirit, it's their loved one that's coming forward, and the messages are very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, spirit can mean a couple different things, I guess, when I'm using the term spirit, as in you connecting with universal consciousness,
right?
And then a spirit, which is a deceased loved one,
right?
Two separate things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and then there's spirits that we all grow up with, like, woo, ghost,
Right.
So we don't want to, blur those lines. We're not talking about that. In fact, were you finished with your story on how you got into it? I would like for us to kind of start the foundation of this conversation by remembering back, like before. Well, I do want to say this while you were talking. I was thinking, when you were little, what did you think that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Honestly, I was fascinated by garbage trucks.
That's funny.
Yeah,
when I was still fascinated by trash.
When I was 4, what was the truck?
Yeah, it was the truck. Machine.
And when I was 4, I left my mom's house and followed the garbage truck down the street, and I got
watching
lost.
them. Open and close, and
and these guys found me and got me back home.
Oh my gosh!
But I was so fascinated, I just took off.
The reason I asked you that question is because I just want to put it into context for the listeners. Like, very few people probably grow up thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be a medium."
Right.
It's not something that you aspire to be. It's a gift. Certain people have the gift that, again, you would probably say that you could identify if you have the gift. And if you do, you can work the muscle and get the training and learn how to, do it better and better,
Right.
And would you say that the more you do it, the easier it becomes?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like gotten to be second nature for me, and Lisa Williams, one of my teachers, she would say everyone is intuitive or psychic, but not everyone is a medium. I believe everyone can have a mediumship experience, but there are some people that are, they're set up for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or it was part of their divine plan. I mean,
right.
I feel like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be a medium, and that's why I'm glad I know you. Everyone needs a medium in their life.
Yeah, right.
My sister used to say that about a mechanic. You should always have a mechanic in your life.
Right.
You're always going to need one.
Right.
Okay. So let's go back. You and I were talking about, let's talk about what we used when we were growing up and all the cartoons and movies and things that influence us on, talking to spirits. So let's go back and give a little bit of a background on, what we've seen and what it's not. So do you want to start, or do you
Sure.
want to?
Yeah. So I grew up in two different camps with this. The one camp was the scary ghosts, the Ouija board, the spinning around 3 times.
Casper, the friendly ghost.
Yeah, well, Casper was friendly. Okay. Yes. So he was like, oh, this makes it okay. Yeah. I remember identifying with Casper when I was a kid.
Oh, that's funny.
Right. So,
well, that makes sense.
Right. So then there's, there's a whole scary part of it, the unknown, the fear part. But then there was my great aunt died. And so my mom talked to me about an experience she had where she felt like her presence was there. And my grandmother talked about the same thing. And they all wore these little angel pendants on their shoulders because they knew that she was still around in spirit. Aww. So there was this weird dichotomy for me as far as being kind of scared and weirded out by it, but also knowing there was something very loving and amazing there as well.
Well, and from what you've talked about before on previous episodes, your mom was very open and spiritually open herself because she had the cards and stuff at an early age. You were kind of exposed to that, right? Whereas my experience about mediumship or talking to the dead, I grew up Baptist, and, I don't think it was okay at all. You don't talk or deal with any of that dark side, it was all right. Dark side,
right?
And I think about cartoon wise, I remember watching on Saturday morning Scooby-Doo, and they would oftentimes go into a haunted house,
right?
And they would have a scary ghost or something, that would come through the walls, and Scooby or
right. Whatever. There was always a scary ghost or monster to come out and to get you. And the thing that I discovered about mediumship was that what a powerful healing modality it is.
Right. It's almost everything opposite.
It is the opposite of everything really, except for the moments about my great aunt and her passing. That's where I first got a taste of it. But then I realized it when I first connected with my friend who passed, who had the aneurysm, because I could tell how much it helped him. That I just explained to the fact that where he was and what was happening to him, because he didn't even know that. Yeah. So, I know how power, and I've seen in my sessions, the healing that can happen. It's really mind-bogglingly astounding sometimes.
What's so neat, and this is an audio podcast, so people can't really see you or us, but what's funny is, Gibbs just another IT guy working in corporate America, yet he has this, incredible gift to be able to communicate with your loved ones. And so, it's almost like, two sides of you, right? There's that daytime, 8 to 5 kind of person. And then there's the person you were meant to be, the person that maybe source, divine love wants you to be. And why? Because you're here to help heal the world, right?
Right.
You're laughing, but
Yeah.
what are you
Well, I
thinking
wanted to
about?
say that nobody's seen me and Batman in the same room at the same time.
Are you saying you're Batman?
I'm just kidding, but
Yes,
yeah.
but that's your alter ego wants to be Batman, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've addressed like what we used to think it was as far as prior to our experiences. And now I want to go into sharing stories. I want to talk about my experience with mediumship, and they haven't all culminated with Gib, that's for sure. I've had previous ones, and I want to describe for the audience my experiences because I want the audience to understand that this isn't something like sometimes you're not even interested in it or you're not even seeking it, and it finds you. It finds you when it needs to find you. So I do want to tell two quick stories, and then we'll get into the one I had with you, Gib. But the first time, so if any of y'all have listened to episode 1 or any of the other episodes of the podcast, you know that my sister died in a very tragic way when I was 21 years old, and I was with her when it happened. And so it's very traumatic and it was very unsettling for me in my life. And so, needless to say, I had a lot of questions and answers, needing some answers and stuff. And so this was like in 1991 when she passed, and I was in my early 20s. So I was not necessarily seeking to talk to her, but a friend of mine at work had told me that she had connected with her mother through a lady in Tennessee, and we're in Houston, Texas. So Tennessee was far. So apparently, you could set up an appointment with this lady over the phone, and you could send this lady some article of clothing or something that you wore to get your energy off of it. And then she would do her mediumship thing. So in that instance, I was looking for it. I was looking for answers, and I really felt like the lady was legit, and she did provide me with some good information that I wanted to know about my sister. Then that was like 1996 or something. Then in 2001, I was not even searching for a connection with my sister. I wasn't looking to talk to her, but I went to this spiritual class, and this woman was working as a volunteer with the check-in, and apparently she had the gift of mediumship. And someone introduced her to me and said, this lady can help people, talk to their loved ones. And I was like, that's nice. Like I wasn't there. I wasn't trying to, you're
That's
laughing.
fine. Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Right. I was so like disconnected from caring what she did.
Yeah, it's like saying
sweet.
someone likes to go to McDonald's or something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, that's cool.
Yeah, great.
Right. And so like I'm just telling the audience, I wasn't trying to set up a session to talk to my sister.
Right.
That's the point. And so what happened was I was taking like a jewelry making class where we were taking stones and putting them on wire, and then we were tying up the wire and making a necklace or whatever. And I happened to be the only one in the class because nobody else showed up. So when I was leaving, this woman, I'll just say her name was Wanda, she was like, she stopped me in the hallway as I was walking out the door, and she's like, who died? And I'm like, I don't know who died.
That's how she started?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So she was like trying to stop me, and she's like, who died? And I go, I don't know who died, because I wasn't trying to find her. I mean, talk to her, my sister, or whoever. I don't know who it was, but anyway. So the lady goes, I go, well, I guess my sister did, she died. That's somebody in my thoughts that died. And again, 5 years earlier. And no, this was 2001. So this was like a 10-year anniversary time. So basically the lady started making comments like, oh, the evidence. Remember, we were talking about the evidence. She started giving me the evidence. She was like, well, she drives a red car, or, drove a red car, and she's married to Mark, and, like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, can we not do this in the hallway? Can we go to a private room and then you finish telling me what you want to, share with me? And so anyway, I don't want to go too deep into the story, but basically we went to the back room. We sat knee to knee each other, and she was holding my hands. And this lady was African American and my sister was Caucasian. And I was looking at this lady in the eyes, and I am not kidding you. My sister's eyes like came through this woman's eyes, and I felt like I was connecting literally with my sister, even though this physical vehicle that this woman was in was an African American, middle-aged woman.
Right.
And so it was really powerful. And she said some things that made me know that it was really her. And I could see my sister's like soul coming through this lady. That was a really like amazing, experience. And we talked, she said some things, blah, blah, blah. And that was complete. And I ended up being in relation with that lady for a little bit afterwards, because it was so fascinating to me that my sister had come through her. One big piece of the story that's very, very powerful is, I don't want to go into everything the lady said, but the first thing she said was, she said something, and I go, I didn't know that I needed to da-da-da. And she goes, I go, I basically, I'm like going to tell the story. So basically I was telling the lady, because she didn't know how my sister died. I go, she just fell off of the parking garage building. And the lady goes, oh my gosh, was this Sharon Smith who, worked at XYZ company? And I was like, yes. Did you know her? And she was like, yes, I knew your sister, when she was alive. And so my sister came through this woman who she already knew in her lifetime when she was alive to get a connected message to me that my sister needed to communicate. It was so powerful. I mean, that was like effing amazing.
Well, she's doing what's called trance mediumship. And trance mediumship is where the medium allows the spirit to literally come inside their body. And I don't practice that kind of mediumship because I feel like if you don't do it correctly, it can be dangerous.
Right.
Plus,
like for the medium, right? Let's
for the
clarify
medium.
that.
Yes, for the medium.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. Were you going to say something else before?
And it sounds like she needs a healthy outlet for her mediumship gifts.
Okay, don't judge her.
Well, no, it's not about a judgment thing. It's good. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because anybody who has mediumship tendencies, if they don't have a healthy outlet, they'll do things like that because they need to get it out.
The boundary.
And so there's a healthy way to do that. There's
I just felt like the lady knew there was a message to be told to me, and my sister was penetrating her like, stop her, catch her. I got a message. So I don't think she was just trying to create a conversation.
No, I
felt
don't
like
think
my sister really wanted to come through, and she found the lady who could talk to me.
Right.
Like that. She found the outlet. And I will tell you, have we even talked about this before? I will tell you, there was like circumstantial situations that had to occur, and all the stuff had to line up. Like I was supposed to take that class on Sunday on 11/11/2001. And it got moved to the day before on Saturday. And that woman was supposed to volunteer on Sunday, and the volunteer for Saturday canceled. So the people coordinating the volunteers called Wanda for Sunday and said, can you move and come on Saturday instead?
Right.
So we discussed, like, after we got to know each other and after all this happened, we discussed how amazing the circumstances were that caused everything to line up for me to come in contact with this lady.
The universe wanted you guys to connect. Yeah.
And or Sharon, Sharon wanted to that bad. So anyway, those were my two experiences with mediumship. One was sought, one was not, but the second one was super powerful that I had no question in my mind that this was legit. Okay. So fast forward to, well, do you have anything about any of that or a story you want to tell before I fast forward to us?
Well, I would like to circle back around and say, if you have these tendencies, there's a healthy way for you to get them out. The woman that read you, she was finding her way to be able to do that. Like, she created a very healing experience for you, but it's very difficult to approach people that you don't know to tell them, hey, this spirit wants to talk to you. And anybody who has mediumship tendencies will know what I'm talking about, because it can become a thing. It can cause problems if you don't have
I could see how if I wasn't open to her.
Right.
Number one, I mean, but just remember, I had one other experience that I paid for. This one was free.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bring it on. You want to share it? You want to talk to me? Bring it on. And I don't have to pay for it. Awesome. Right? Because usually it's not cheap, right? Like, to speak to your loved one, it's not cheap. So I was totally open. And I mean, clearly I was an open, an open thing too, like an open, willing participant in the situation, right? Okay, so those are my first two foundational experiences that no one ever has to convince me they were real or not real. I lived them. I did it. I know they were. There's no denying it for me. It doesn't matter what other people think. Go have your own experience and then tell me, it's not real. So in the meantime, though, I found I was not looking for a medium. I had no reason to, look for a meeting. Let me just tell everybody, it's now been 30 years. It was the 30-year anniversary of my sister's suicide, that she did in front of me. And I did a lot of work, a lot of healing, a lot of moving beyond. I was living my life not as a survivor of suicide. I was living my life wanting to thrive in my life in spite of what I had experienced. So that's where I was up until August of 2021, which is when I was on Facebook and short story, an algorithm through Gibbs' mugshot.
Whoa.
I'm joking. It's not a mugshot. It's a profile picture. And he threw that up in front of me in an algorithm and said, you might want to know this person. And I was like, who is this person? So I clicked on his thing, and his profile said he helps highly empathic people clear negative energy. And I was like, I just said, it's like that Facebook was reading my mind again, because I just said, I need to find someone who can work with empaths, who can help clear negative energy. And I was like in this space where I needed that, and I was looking for it, but I didn't know where to go. And Facebook brought you to me. So basically, Gib and I had a phone conversation. We talked about whether we could work together. We both got a yes on working together for me to hire him for a session. I was not looking for mediumship. I didn't even know, I don't even think that was even I don't even think we talked about that.
We didn't.
In the discovery, right? I wasn't asking you for your mediumship skills. I wanted the highly empathic people, negative energy clearing.
Right.
That's what I was buying.
Right.
So I'm just sharing that with the audience, because when I tell you the story, you'll understand. So again, I did mention to Gib that the 30-year anniversary of my sister's suicide was coming up, and I didn't know if there was any residual effects that I was unaware of that needed to be healed or cleared. I wanted to be willing to address those if there was something there. And so, but then there was 2 other issues I was really going to want to work on with him. So anyway, so we scheduled our first session, and it was basically just like kind of general conversation in the beginning, getting to know each other was our first session. And like instantly, I'm pretty sure instantly, right? Didn't you instantly say, Lydia, Sharon's here and she wants to come forward? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So I was like, okay, you guys, at this point, I wasn't needing any evidence. Like Gib and I were talking earlier, and he was saying, like, typically, just like that Wanda lady was saying, she's married to a guy named Mark, and she's, or was married. She drove a red car. Like that's all the evidence that a medium needs to provide to help people know that you're talking to the right loved one. And I know what that's like. But Gib and I were just talking. I was like, oh my gosh, you didn't even have to provide me with any evidence. I knew, and you knew that it was Sharon. And I believed it to be Sharon from my own ability to connect with spirit, knowing that this was exactly what I needed. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
exactly right.
Yeah.
They'll give me information enough to show that we're connected. They always do every time. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was, I'm not going to go into the big, heavy details because it was really powerful, but I will say in general that, the stuff that Gib was saying made a lot of sense to me about why she was coming forward and what she needed to say and what she had to say to help me understand what was underneath some of the blocks that I had in progressing in certain areas that I didn't even know were blocks. I just knew that I knew I had blocks. I didn't know they were related to the experience because I'd done so much work around it for 30 years, addressing it over the long haul. So is there something you want to say? You trying to jump in?
No. Well, I just remember when I first got started, how surprised I was about how much of a loving and healing experience it is. And that it's not a scary experience. It's a healing experience. And so, just like what happened when we were in session, I was in session with you, that was a loving and healing experience. Like it wasn't about being scary or,
nothing negative
at all.
No, in fact, she came forward to help me heal.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say, well, you could say like almost 100% of the time that people come forward in a session, it's to provide healing for the person who's left behind.
That's the only reason why they come forward.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And this is what Gib and I want the audience listening to this conversation to understand that there is healing available in areas with people who've passed on that a lot of people are blocked to believe that is possible. And so they're just blocking out the potential moving beyond the pain and suffering that exists anytime you lose a loved one.
Right. It's one of the most loving and healing experiences that I have been a part of in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell just looking at you talking about it, you're holding back emotion.
Yeah.
I can see
big.
it.
Yeah, it's big. And it's amazing. It's powerful and it's amazing to experience. Like I'm really in awe of it. I still like pinch myself sometimes,
And I know because you and I have talked that you really love how you feel when you can help people in this way. It really lights you up to be able to be a servant as a messenger for those who need the healing, because it's just in your makeup. It's just who you are.
Right.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
side of you that gets to be expressed, right?
Right. And it's a healthy way to express it. And I'm not saying that anybody who has mediumship tendencies needs to go and become a medium, but I do feel like having awareness around this part of yourself is important, because if you try to suppress it, it will only cause you issues down the road.
Right. So, what I want to wrap up about my particular experiences with mediumship is that the healing was an unconscious, unaware need that got resolved. And the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, brought Gib into my existence, just like Wanda showed up somehow in my life. Gib also came into my life through the Facebook algorithm. Funny, I just want to add this because I missed saying this in the first time I introduced Gib on the second episode of my podcast. I want to tell people that the irony of the fact that I just met Gib like 6 months ago is that he and I went to the same high school, and we actually were in the same graduating class. And we have a lot of the similar friends on Facebook because we went to the same graduating class. That's why the algorithm thought we should know each other.
Or something.
But it's just so fascinating that our lives had crossed paths, and here they're crossing again. But the first time they crossed, we didn't have any recollection of each other. Mm-hmm. And then here we both are crossing each other's paths at this time in our lives because we both have a common interest, and it's to bring information to the world to help people heal. Right. I happen to have gone through that journey myself, but now I want to share that with the world, and Gibbs on board about that. So that's why he continues to come have these conversations with me so we can have dialogue about things that are really important for people to move beyond. And one of the things I like to tell people that I like to do is help people find their joy again. Mm-hmm. And that's my reason, is because I think we should all be living in our joy, and everybody's joy is different. But a lot of people are finding, like false senses of happiness that are external to the individual. But the joy that you seek is inside of you. You just have to clear the path so that you can experience it, because it already lives inside of you. It's just waiting to be released. Mm-hmm. Right, Gib? What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so with that said, it's interesting because we had that one session, Gib, that first session, and then I worked with you on subsequent sessions. But we never needed to use your mediumship tools again for any of the subsequent sessions that I worked with you on to clear the negative energy from my empathic soul. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's just a tool in your tool belt.
It's a tool.
Not right. And so it's not like it's not the only thing you do. You can help people who just want a mediumship session. Mm-hmm. It's not the only thing you do. And in the case of me, I wasn't looking for it, but it came through because it was needed. It was part of the, healing process.
It was a crucial part, really.
It's like a big cork. Once you got that out, everything else was flowing,
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And I know I'm looking at your eyes, and you're laughing with joy in your eyes when you say that.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, just anything else we want to say about my particular session? I mean, I will say that, like, she said a lot of things I needed to hear that I didn't know I needed to hear. And at the end, we had a release ceremony. I'll share that with people, which really, and why I want to share this with people is because if you have secret suffering, because you're still suffering, even though the world goes on, like you lose your loved one, you lose your husband, you lose your parent, you lose your, sibling, you lose a best friend, like people that your grandmother, like people who are super significant to you. And then life goes on. You got to go back. You get your little grieving period of your week or whatever. Bereavement is what they call it. And then boom, you're back at the job. You're back at raising your kids. You're back at this or that. But there's secret suffering that lives underneath the life that you have to live. And I know that I lived it, I understand it. And that's why I want to talk about it, because there is secret suffering. And that is the thing that is keeping you from truly experiencing joy. I do want to say that, and Gib, you can chime in on this. Your loved one on the other side who totally and fully loves you wants nothing more than for you to be happy while you're in this life. So whatever they can do to help you find your joy again, based on these life circumstances, they want to do it. Right, Gib?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions is the person feeling like their deceased loved one is suffering. And the truth is they're doing fine. They've crossed over. They're at peace. And really, it's the person that's coming for the reading that's needing the help. So the spirit's kind of like, you got this backwards. I'm good. We're here to help you. Like, that's what we're here for.
Right. And you don't have to suffer in my name. Remember, in Italy or in Greece, in old world lives where you had to wear black the rest of your life when you lost a husband or something. I mean, I don't even know if you know those kinds of cultural. But like culturally aspects, you're supposed to grieve for like a month or 2 months or whatever, or the rest of your life. And the truth is, we do have secret suffering. We do think that it somehow betrays our loved one to actually be happy and to be joyful, when in fact, that's what they're needing for you to be, because they want you to be happy. And they don't want their death to be your life sentence of misery.
No, not at all.
Right. So help the audience get that message. Like, what are some of the things that, of course, you're not saying any names or anything. Do you have any examples or stories or anything come to mind? I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Well, the number one reason why people come to see me when it comes to mediumship, they want to know that their loved one is okay.
Okay.
That's why they come. Number one, if you ask somebody,
because like they're afraid of heaven or hell, like
they're afraid that they're in suffering. They're afraid that they they don't know. It's a mystery, and the sense of loss creates a negative outlook about that. Or you're, because you've lost this person, it's sad. So the feeling of sad moves towards that situation. And really, what these spirits want is your happiness. They want, and you as in, someone who wants a session, they want their loved one who's still in the body to heal.
Right. And I feel like that's the reason that Sharon came forward. After 30 years, you're thinking like, okay, well, my life looks like it's moved on. Right. Mm-hmm. But there were things that she knew that were left undone or that needed to be said or whatever. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to share with the audience is that with that powerful exchange, I did get some answers that I didn't know needed to be gotten. And literally like a switch flipped from that moment we did it. And we were doing it at nighttime, when you were after work, at night. And then like I woke up the next morning and I felt like almost transformed, spiritually, mentally, physically transformed. And I don't feel the same sadness around having had that life experience, because what I could tell the audience is that, yes, it happened. I experienced it, consciously, and through all the stuff I'd done, thought that I'd come to terms with it. Like when you have a trauma or you have a life experience, you kind of get like, okay, I'm going to get comfortable with this. I was comfortable with it. That's what happened. But there was secret suffering underneath that was sad, that had to be a life experience that I experienced. I didn't like that aspect of it. I wished that wasn't my story. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, once I had this session with you, I no longer felt that way. I no longer felt sad that I had this experience. Instead, my soul was able to pull out the good, that I could glean from having that life experience, and in the direction and the path that I went on because of that life experience. And then that life experience had so much more meaning than I ever imagined. And I could feel it in my soul, where I could actually get my joy back.
Right.
And that was it. I was looking for how to have my joy back, and I got it.
And you found your peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I had already, though. This is what I want to express, is that I had thought that I had peace with it, because I did all the therapy and the mental and the this and then that. But it wasn't until there was some unresolved underlying energy around it that needed clearing. And we did that through that session, and then a few subsequent experiences where I cleared more energy after that I really actually understand what it means to like get your joy back. Because remember, she talked about my joy. She actually talked about my joy and my light before this happened in the session. Do you remember her talking about that?
I do.
And I was reminded of the joy and the light that I had before this happened. And so I really wanted my joy and my light back, and decided that that's what I was going to have. The next half of my life was going to be filled with, I'd given enough years to suffering, and knowing she didn't want me to be suffering was like a gift to me, to know that that's not where she needed me to be.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to have a podcast episode where we're talking about this, Gib, because I know a lot of people who've had loved ones die too early, die because of their, medical situations. I mean, think of all the people that have died quickly because of COVID, and that people need answers. They need resolution. They need comfort. They need communication. They need connection. Right. And so I wanted to talk about your gifts and mediumship and let people know that this is available, and it's not woo-woo, and it's not weird. It is complete compassion, love, understanding, and comfort. That's what comes to mind.
Right. And I guess I wanted the audience to know that when I'm in session, it's not like these people walk through the wall and start talking. It's like a three-way conversation. So they'll show me things, I'll hear things, they'll give me a feeling, and then I'll describe those in the session. And that's basically how it works.
Right. Do you do them on the phone always? How all do you do them?
I would do pre-pandemic. I was doing a lot of them over the phone.
Okay.
And then people would come to see me too. Nowadays, since the pandemic, I'm basically just doing them over phone or Zoom, and it works.
I was wondering if you were doing them over Zoom, though.
Yeah, and it works exactly the same. Like, I've seen people come to see me and they're sitting in front of me. They're sitting in front of me in a video chat, or I'm on the phone. It doesn't really matter. And honestly, having that physical separation almost creates a pure session in the sense, because I'm not picking up on the person. I'm just reading the spirit,
the energy. Yeah.
Right. The energy. And so, if you talk to Lisa Williams, that's the only way you're supposed to do it, because that's the way you get the truest connection. So the example would be the spirit comes back thinking they're a great cook, but the person I'm giving the reading to thinks they're a terrible cook. And so I'm like, well, if I'm reading the energy of the person, I'm giving the session to, might have said, yeah, they're a great cook. But really the truth is, or they're a bad cook, but really the spirit thinks they're a great cook. Right. So there's some nuances there as well. Yeah. Nuances there as well.
Yeah. I was curious if you were doing them on Zoom, because we did it on the phone, but I will say that, because I was bawling, when you were telling me what you were telling me. And I'm just wondering if by doing them on the phone, I'm just going to say this because of my own personal experience, Gib, you can say whatever you want to say about this, but from my own personal experience, if like you want a full release and really feel like it's, just you in spirit, I would say the phone is better. And the reason is because if your ego is going to get blocked by looking at like a man looking at you when you want to ugly cry,
right?
You might resist an ugly cry. I mean, male, female, like if you're a man and you're coming to talk to Gib and spirit, you may not want to cry because you're a man, and men don't cry, right? That's the perception. But I'm just going to say this, Gib, that if you want like the best experience, I think it's a phone one with you, only because you'll have more release.
Maybe. I think really it's probably up to the person who's asking for the session, what they're comfortable with. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But for you, it worked out perfectly.
I'm only talking about my own experience.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I gave you the freedom to say whatever you wanted to say about that. But that's my personal belief, is that through the phone, I felt more free to have whatever,
to lose your shit if you needed to.
Shit. And I needed to lose my shit. So thank God, I felt free to do that, and there was no like preconceived, feelings. But yeah, you're right. Everybody's different. So we'll check in with yourself and your higher self and ask, do I want to, do this via Zoom, or do I want to do it on the phone? And then you can talk to Gib about that. So what else do we need to say about, really just the healing is like the key that I wanted to express to people about, because I know that we can feel stuck, that we're like, if we move on somehow, it's going to discredit the relationship, especially if you like had a husband that passed and it was, unexpected. And you just feel like if you move on and, you're somehow not honoring your relationship,
I've had
or wife.
Many sessions where the loved one will come back and offer a blessing to them to move on.
Like a gift. A gift that it's
happens.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
It's amazing to experience that.
Yeah.
Because the release that the people get, that feeling of acceptance, like they feel like a lot of it is about a release to move on. They're holding something in or back because something is unresolved. And whatever situation that was, you had your situation with your sister, and everybody else that's lost somebody might have a situation with someone that they've lost that's unresolved, that they want to come back and try to figure out, or say the words that needed to be said that they never got to say, or hear the words from their loved one that they never got to hear before they passed.
Yeah. It's so powerful. I just hope that my how do I want to say this? My wish, my desire is that for anyone out there who's finding this episode and is feeling a call that they might have the slightest bit of interest in seeing what their loved one might have as the message for them, I just encourage you to open yourself up to the possibility that there's a communication that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you found this episode, and that who knows how you're going to find this episode, it just may land in your potential to, you should know this episode. It could be an algorithm. You should know this episode. Click on it and see what it's about.
Right.
You never know how the universe works, right?
Right. Exactly.
So do you have are there any type of inspiring words or tell us a little bit about little stories, or is there any medium besides the one that you had with the deaf guy, which is amazingly powerful story? You can go to episode 2 and hear the long, detailed version of that story. We told it when we were introducing Gib to the whole podcast. And so that's why we didn't want to go through the whole thing again. So go back to episode 2 of the Oneness Junkie podcast and hear Gib tell his story about that. But are there any other, of course, no names, no circumstances to identify, but any memories of powerful exchanges that just sit with you when you think about mediumship, things that happened?
I think one of my favorite things is, and there's a few specific ones that come up, and honestly, there were some of the ones I'm thinking about were some of the first ones that I experienced. One in the class it was like walking up and hitting a grand slam. You don't even know how to play baseball. That's how that was. And even my teacher Russell is like, that may never happen to you again. And it honestly,
it was like a confirmation that you were supposed to be doing this.
Right. And so it was basically like, as a medium, you want to remember not to get up in your ego about it. But I think, it just brings joy to me. And I remember there was a couple things, like one of the first times I actually got paid for a session, I went over to a friend's house and gave them a reading. It was her mom that came forward. And she gave me all this information because her family, after she passed, was fighting with each other. And there was information there that provided healing and let their family come back together. It didn't happen right away. She gave me the information to give to the client that created a healing and brought her family back together. I got a message from her a month or 2 after the session, and this happens a lot, is guess what happened? Remember how we talked about this in the session, and you mentioned to try, my mom said to try this. Well, I tried it, and guess what? My family is back together now. And when I heard that, I almost started crying because I was like, this is amazing. How amazing is this? It just, the whole situation was just incredible. It's just hard to believe. So when I think about some of the sessions that I've had, that one always comes up.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And like I said, these sessions, they provide connection, communication, compassion, and just clarity, right?
Right.
They're so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, we're kind of wrapping up the time. That went by fast, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It sure did.
Did it for you, or you
yes, it did.
It went by fast for me. I know I did a lot of the talking, but it's if you feel guided to find out how to connect with your loved one, and you feel like you want to do it with Gib, how do they contact you? How do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Gibogram, Gibbo-gram, or Gib Broadhead at Facebook. If we're not friends or connected on Instagram, just send me a friend request, or you can just send me a direct message on there as well. You could also go to my website, gibbroadhead.com. It's Gib with 1 B. And you can contact me through my website as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that sounds like a good plan for anybody. Do you have anything?
No.
Do you have anything you want to share?
Well, I just want to say, everybody, thanks for listening today.
Yeah, it feels like a powerful episode, doesn't it? I
It
feel
does.
like,
Mhm.
the intention that we started this episode with, we talked before we hit record, was just that we can provide the information that people need to further their healing and to go out there in the world and experience their true joy. And I really hope that this message, finds you and it provides some new level of understanding to the point where you want to take action and
Mhm.
and find the healing within you,
Mhm.
that's possible. So,
Right.
as I like to say, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. So compassion
Yes.
starts with you and me.
Mm.
So thank you, Gib, for spending your afternoon with me. And
Thank you, Lydia.
you're welcome. We'll
Yeah.
be on again, I'm sure, when we find another topic
For sure.
to talk about. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.